So, welcome back to The Universal Heart, a podcast where stories of triumph, challenge, growth, and empowerment remind us that healing is an art shared by all. If you're new here, this is a space for real people and real stories, the kind you don't always hear out loud. We talk about what we've been through, what we're carrying, what we're learning, and what's helped us keep going. These are unscripted, unedited, aside from this, conversations. No rehearsed answers, no polished perfection, just honest moments, real emotion, and real connection. Because sometimes the most healing thing is hearing someone else say, "Me too." I'm your host, Karrie O'Connor, and I'm here to hold space for the brave, the messy, the meaningful, and to share conversations that remind us we're not alone, and that there's strength in showing who we are and showing up as we are. Tonight, I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. I'm sitting down again with Merissa Mills, a purpose-driven entrepreneur, changemaker, registered social worker, and she's based in North Bay. Merissa is someone who leads with community care and courageous honesty. She's founded grassroots initiatives that take on homelessness, poverty, housing, and food insecurity, always centering around advocacy, social impact, and relationship-based care. And what I love is that her work is rooted in real connection, the kind of care that's personal, human, and deeply needed. And beyond social services, Merissa is also a creative force. She's the force behind PhotoMill Photography. After moving to North Bay, photography became one of the ways she adapted to change, capturing honest, unscripted moments that honor connection and quiet beauty of everyday life. Through both her advocacy and her art, she truly embodies what the Universal Heart is all about: compassion, authenticity, and meaningful change. I'm so grateful that I was introduced to Merissa over a year ago. So grab your favorite beverage, take a breath, and settle in, because this one will be a powerful one. So let's get into it. So welcome back, Merissa.
Thanks,
You'll
Karrie.
notice a little record in the corner.
Yes, I see it now. I'm feeling confident.
Okay, so just a little backstory. This is the second time we're recording this as per the posts on social media. We did record it the other night, we thought. However, there was a little bit of a mistake in not hitting record. So we're going to do take two. So, Merissa, I want to start with just getting you to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, kind of what makes you tick, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to start off by saying if you hear any growling or barking, yeah, my dog is in the room. She loves to be part of these conversations. I can't have like a virtual call with somebody without her having her say. So yeah, a little bit about me. First and foremost, I'm a mom. I'm a wife, a social worker, an entrepreneur, and a photographer. I have lived in North Bay before. I lived here when I was about 12 to 21, maybe. Moved to Windsor for 10 years, went to school there, got my bachelor's in social work. And 2 years ago, almost now, I dragged my family all the way back up, and I started my social work career up north. And at the same time, started my first ever photography career here in North Bay.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we talked a little bit about your past in Windsor before, and kind of connected that I used to live there as well briefly. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was?
Yeah. So when I moved to Windsor, I was enrolled in the BSW at the University of Windsor. I graduated in 2018, and going into the pandemic, there wasn't actually very much work. So I was out of work, and idle time is not really something that I'm a fan of. So I started volunteering just kind of on my own regard, helping out people in need, people experiencing poverty, food insecurity, homelessness. And that kind of turned into something bigger than me, bigger than I ever could have imagined. I started and founded a group called Street Angels. From there, it was amalgamated with a registered Canadian charity, and we had 5 programs running from there, including one which was a soup kitchen made out of a refitted mobile sleeper camper trailer. And we also started the Resource Drop-In Center in Leamington, which is a small town about 45 minutes outside of Windsor. I'm really happy to say that those two main programs are still going today. And actually, both of them on average feed 200 people every night. They run 365 days a year. So it's a combined 400 people getting fed every single night still to this day. So yeah, it's such a good feeling because not only was I a part of it, but that people were so passionate about the same thing as me that it's continued and even blossomed in my absence. So
Oh, wow. Isn't that neat how something can continue after you step back and sometimes even grow stronger?
yeah, it's been incredible to watch. I'm very fortunate that I kind of get a front row seat. Everybody keeps me updated. I always go visit when I'm down there, and yeah, it's amazing to see not just an organization but a movement.
Right. So, did you find that the move up here was a big challenge for you or your family coming back?
Yeah, I didn't still have a lot of connections here in town because I was so young when I left. And so much has changed. A lot of it for the better. I've seen some amazing growth here in North Bay, which is really cool to come back to. It was very challenging because I think I was so ingrained in the Windsor community, and I never really anticipated like how slow it would be to get that same level of involvement here to where I feel like I am part of the community. But unlike when I moved from here to Windsor and I kind of dawdled for the first few years and didn't really go out and make connections, I felt like I'd sort of figured out the formula. And it's just go out, do what you love, and meet people that care about the same things as you. So as soon as I got here, I started doing exactly that. Going out, volunteering, getting involved in the community, meeting people through work and through other activities, such as how I met you.
Yeah.
um,
So, for a backstory, we were introduced by a mutual friend who was a supporter of a center I was running at the time. And Merissa kind of stepped in to give us some advice and help us out with some challenges we were facing that she had already kind of navigated with her own organizations. And it just kind of blossomed from there. And that mutual friend has since left the city for work reasons. And so we want to say hi to him tonight. Um, but he kind of brought us together and kind of was a really big champion for us in bringing people through the door who might have something to offer. And that's kind of what happens in a small town is it's kind of those people that you meet along the way that kind of go, hey, I know someone that.
yes.
Um, and it's quite the same for finding employment up here too, which is kind of a little bit it's not the traditional where you just go to a job site and you go to a cattle call interview. A lot of the times it's who you know and kind of the organizations you've volunteered with, which is why it's so important for young people to get out and volunteer. So what is it? Can you tell people a little bit about what you're doing now, whether you're working as a social worker, working in policy, what kind of that looks like for you?
Yeah, so when I first moved here, I was really excited to do clinical work for the first time. So that's like therapy, counseling. And I did that for the first year and a half. I learned so much doing that. Things that you can't learn in books, things that you can't learn about other people, things that you can't learn about yourself without experiencing it. So I just feel a lot of gratitude for that time. And yet, even though it was something that I had always wanted to do, I always thought it would be the be all end all for me. I felt pulled back into that that same passion that I have for those experiencing, homelessness, extreme poverty, housing and food insecurity. And so I'm actually working now back in the nonprofit world. So I'm doing policy, procedure, grant writing, a little bit of program development, and it's kind of everything. It's so funny because I spent 2 years trying out different things and trying to find out what I wanted, only to realize that I had it the whole time. It was just luck, I struck it on the first try. And I think truly now I am where I'm meant to be. But yeah, I wouldn't wish away that year and a half of clinical work for anything. It was such an amazing experience and taught me so much, like I said, about myself, especially.
I think that's one of the almost misconceptions people have is that you have to find what you love right out of the gate,
Yeah.
which let's face it, how many of us actually do? And B, that, we know who we are right from the beginning. And often, I don't think we really do. And that little bit of experience often brings us back full circle. So what is something that you're passionate about outside of that? Because you kind of have a sideline that you do, that you really, focus on and love on the kind of the back burner that makes you kind of click.
Yeah, so for a long time, I was working in nonprofit. I was working in higher education, doing clinical work, providing mental health support. I also worked in private practice for a bit. And so my whole life was just kind of providing therapy for a long time. And so I kind of realized that I needed some therapy of my own. And I'm not talking about, sitting and talking and what I do, but something different. And it's not to say that I don't have an amazing therapist, because I do. But I needed something that was mine, that was based on passion, that was based on something that was just for me. And so when I first moved here, I was just struck by the beauty. I mean, I've seen it before, but I just don't know if you can appreciate it when you're young like that. I think I appreciated the inside of the mall a little bit more when I was that age. And so when we first moved back, we were living on the water and just those gorgeous sunsets. And I would try to take pictures on my phone to share it with my friends back in Windsor. And, it captures it, but it doesn't really capture the feeling in the moment, the feeling that I have when I look at it. And so I guess I was just hoping to see if maybe I could, recreate that feeling if I had some better equipment. And I thought, what about, more professional camera? And so I got one. I bought a $75 used camera body. It was like the deal of a lifetime, Marketplace. Thank you. And I went out and I started taking pictures, and it was so crazy to see how, suddenly they looked closer to what I was feeling. And then I learned a little bit about editing and the way that I can kind of put my own style into the photos and really kind of evoke that emotion. And yeah, so it just started with wanting to share that beauty and that emotion with everyone else. And now I'm here. So
I'm going to try and pull up just, it's the first time I've done this. I'm going to try and pull up one of your image files here.
Okay.
So I had Merissa send me a couple of photos. However, I'm not seeing them in my, I could pull up our wedding photo. Oh, you know what? Here's one that you had done of our wedding rings. So this is one of Marissa's photos that we actually just had printed. So Merissa was our wedding photographer, or one of them. And we actually had this printed for our wall recently. And I've actually had it posted on or sent it to the manufacturer of our ring website as well.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, it's there was that one, and then I'm going to try and find the other ones in the background here. But while I do that, why don't you tell me? So I always ask the guests a few questions before I kind of bring them online and kind of set to do these, and we kind of had a dry run or a practice run. I'd like to know, one of the questions that I ask is, how has creativity, self-expression, or storytelling played a role in your healing or growth? And there was something in that kind of spoke to me, and it was that I learned you can't solve things for people, but you can sit with them in the hard parts. How does photography allow you to do that, or your creative expression allow you to do that?
Yeah. So I think it's a lesson that I learned starting in clinical, and then I saw it mirrored in my photography. And so, when somebody's going through a difficult time, you can't always solve that for them. It could be something as serious as someone's grieving the loss of a loved one. And, coming and talking isn't necessarily going to solve that for them. But what I could do for them in that moment is just sit with them in the mess, just so they're not alone, and just be a witness to that moment as it is. And so I think photography is like that in a lot of ways, because people are going through like such a wide array of experiences, these rich life experiences. And my job, unless it's maybe like a creative session where I'm styling it, isn't necessarily to create the moment, it's to witness it. And so just, capturing things as they are and the beauty of things in the moment. It's not always about perfection. It's not always about accuracy or realism. It's just about the moment and the feeling that goes with that.
That's really cool. So photography, you say, gives you a language. So what is the one photography shoot that sticks out to you as being one that speaks to you?
Speaks to me? I would have to say like a creative session that I did back this fall. I had this kind of image in my head, and it was just a woman with a red hooded cloak running through the forest at dusk, carrying a lantern, and she's a little bit fearful. And it just kind of like popped into my head. And I thought, like, what if I created something around that? I have this image in my head, and it would be awesome to recreate that image, but also to tell a story surrounding it. And it's sort of a play on Little Red Riding Hood. So we have my amazing model who came down from Sudbury, and she's got this gorgeous red velvet cloak. We custom ordered it. It actually came from Spain, which was so crazy. It was off Etsy, but it shipped right from Spain. And we were able to take these gorgeous, gorgeous photos that I'm so proud of. And sometimes it's hard to believe, like, oh my gosh, I took that. So just that and the story that it tells, I think that was the first time I really explored more of like a long form of storytelling and, a beginning, middle, and an end. And so to see that through photos, it's not so much meant for each photo to stand alone, but rather as a series that kind of tells a story. So yeah, that was a really fun experience.
That's cool. That's cool. And, I wish, like, I don't often see things, like I can reproduce something, or I can create something from my mind, but I don't, as an artist, often work with people. So that kind of amazes me. And I've mentioned before that my daughter is a bit of a sideline photographer as well, or a freelancer. And she works very much in the same way. She loves everything natural, kind of like not a lot of lighting. And that kind of, I've always kind of been in awe of that ability to take somebody and brings out of somebody what they are or who they are. As a painter or a designer working in, paint and graphite and different things, I often don't get that opportunity. It's recreate a still life image or, something along those lines. So I've always been kind of in awe of that. So when you decided to step away from your past, your nonprofit that you kind of essentially created, what were some of the challenges and reasons that you did that? What were you facing as a catalyst to kind of saying, hey, whoa, I need a change, or this isn't quite right now?
Yeah, I think mostly it was just my own limitations. I was working like 70-hour work weeks, and it just kind of consumed me. And I think in a lot of ways, passion does. But it was sort of gearing into like an unhealthy amount because I wasn't able to make time for myself or, feel comfortable prioritizing my needs. And so pretty much everything that I had left went to my family. And even then, sometimes I fell short because I really did feel like I had the weight of the world on me. During that time, people often ask, like, why are you doing this? When we would open up a new program or, why do you feel so strongly about this? And I would often say, like, if we don't do it, who will? And I think I lived by that for a long time. But I learned that that's not maybe the best thing to go off of, because the truth is, like, there's a lot of things that people aren't doing that need to be done, that should be done. I can't do them all. I can't be everything to everybody, but I can be a wonderful mom to my daughter and a good wife to my husband and, good at my job and good at photography. If you focus on the things that, matter the most to you
Mhm.
and you're, putting boundaries into place to keep yourself and your sanity safe. I just felt like I was half-assing everything. And I used to have this thing I would say, I was like, I want a whole ass something just once in my life, just
Right.
feel like I did the absolute best I could because I was able to put 100% into that because I wasn't spread so thinly everywhere else.
Right. Right. I used to have a friend that said you can't ride two horses with one ass.
There you go.
That was kind of her, description of what you just summed up. So yeah. And it's very true. You kind of have to step back at some point and go, where am I doing my greatest good
Yeah.
in the best way?
Yes.
Not only for the people you're helping, but also for yourself.
Yeah.
I know for me, stepping away from, my nonprofit was a challenge. And in my case, unfortunately, it hasn't continued without me. But there was always a challenge, and I always felt like I was letting somebody down somewhere.
Yes.
And I kind of had to sit back and go, what is the best way that I can still get stories out there? Because I realized the one thing it did do was it did connect me to a lot of people like yourself and a lot of the stories that are out there that aren't told.
Right.
Um, so how can I best put those out there? And of course, that was the magazine I've just developed and this podcast that I'm starting. So that was a really big sort of wake up call for me.
Yeah.
And I think, my wife saying it's okay to step back, which is something I've never had before. But
Yeah.
also then, I'd be lying if I said that, knowing that you had kind of walked that path as well and that it was okay to do that didn't help. And I still struggle with it, but I think that's human nature. You do for a long time.
Yes.
And it's not to say I won't go back to it, but right now we're kind of exploring avenues, which is also nice to have that freedom that we often, I don't think, have the support to go out and explore. It's always get a job that pays 9 to 5, that, gives you what you need, that you can provide. You don't often have that support. And for me at 49, I never had that.
And I totally understand where you're coming from because my
Yeah.
husband did the same thing for me. He allowed me to finally explore, what I wanted and what I wanted to do,
Mhm.
who I wanted to be. And I had never had that before. And it
Yeah.
changes things, not just in your life, but the way that you see yourself and the possibilities. You start dreaming again. You feel like you can conquer things. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's amazing. And I'm so glad that you've experienced
Yeah.
that now.
It really is. And, it's kind of funny because you have to be in the right place too to actually internalize what people are saying to you. Because I know, our mutual friend kind of gave me that advice 6 months before it happened. And I kind of went, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in the place yet to hear that.
And I
So,
totally get that. And, so many people had said to me for so long, you've got to stop, you've got to stop, you've got to stop. Like it's not, and then I went to a silent retreat weekend actually.
right.
And it was all about, just reflection. And I had reflected that whole weekend and finally came out of it with like my decision. And, even then I still did not walk away. I still took months before I
Mhm.
fully, like, even though I knew it was the right thing to do and I had realized, it still took months before I was actually able to like make a move and like make a change. So I think, and that's kind of change theory though, right? It's like that's the beginning stage. You feel uncomfortable with things as they are. You have a realization, you become
Mhm.
uncomfortable, and then the next thing you know, change is happening, right? So I think that reflection is so important. And I take a lot more time to be mindful and to think about things now and to really like deep think on things because I think
Mhm.
that's kind of the catalyst for change is just thought and reflection.
Right. And you came out of that silent retreat. And I know this because we had the prior. You came out of that silent retreat with one word written on a card, and we kind of had a discussion about, words and symbolism and how, that was the catalyst to me getting to know my wife, was a word that she had chosen for, kind of a New Year's resolution. And I've done the same thing this year. But you came out of that retreat with a word. And what was that word, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so we did like they were like mini vision boards. And so it was supposed to be one word that you wanted to be like the most important thing to encompass, what was your vision for the next year? Like, what is the path that you are on? And so I went in and I thought for a long time about it, and it just hit me, and it was so simple. And I wrote the word family because really to me, that was the most important thing. That is the most important thing. And I just realized that there was no way that I could be the mom I wanted to be and be the leader that I wanted to be in that capacity, in the capacity that was demanded of me at the time. And so, yeah, that was the catalyst for change. And months later, I was, making a move.
That had to have been a big, I guess, challenge for you with a young family, as well as is having the, I guess, courage to pick up and move to a different city with a young daughter and, a husband who, is rooted in, I'm not sure that I've ever asked what your husband does, but rooted in, his life. So, you're not just uprooting yours and changing yours. It's three people kind of, involved in that change. So that must have been quite a challenge as well. Are there any, I guess, tools that you use to kind of navigate that and get through it?
Yeah. I think we thought really practically in terms of like, okay, this is a transition. And I spent some time working with military families as a military family social worker. And I think the thing I learned from that and took away from that, the biggest lesson was actually just that transitions, even good ones, can be challenging. And so, not being naive about the fact that, yeah, we're moving and it's a good thing. We've found work, we've found a home, and that's all great. But at the same time, this is a big move. This is a big deal. It's not just, switching houses in the same city. We're truly picking up our lives and starting over. And so just giving each other grace and understanding of the fact that, even good transitions, they take time. They're challenging. They have challenges.
Right. So I'm kind of curious. Why do you feel suddenly, I guess not suddenly, because I did ask you to come on this, but why do you feel it's important to share kind of, what your experiences are and what you do and how creativity plays into that at this point in time?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about showing up authentically in as many spaces as I can, so that I can really give people permission to do the same. Because I think when somebody shows up and they say, this is who I am, and other people see that, they feel more confident to show up and be themselves as well. And authenticity, excuse me, looks different, in a lot of different settings. It looks different professionally. It looks different with your friends. It can even look different from job to job, as mine, one being social work and one being photography. But you can find a way to show up authentically anywhere. And I'm sort of realizing what that looks like now for me. So really, I've spent the last almost 2 years kind of working on, what does that look like for me showing up authentically, because that is one of my values. And so trying to live more by that. And the thing I noticed is that not only did it have this profound effect on me where I suddenly, felt more seen for who I really was and more accepted as well, I think. But I found that it kind of gave other people permission to do the same. I saw people showing up in ways that I had never seen before, in this wide range of emotion, showing pain, showing hurt, seeking support, seeking validation, seeking, commisery. And then also in this other amazing positive way where people are showing up as their silly selves and, waving their weird flag and just showing up and being them. And, I've just, it's been one of the most incredible things to see. And so I think I just want to continue to do that. So I do appreciate, you giving me a chance to, to speak and to have this conversation, because I hope that, somebody else hears it and thinks, oh my gosh, I can do that too.
Right. And that's exactly what this podcast is about. It's not about, putting on airs. It's not about coming in with a perfectly done, hairstyle and a perfectly done backdrop. If I wanted that, I'd go to a studio. It's about having the dogs run through the scene, or, because we have two here as well, So it's really about just being who you are without having to worry about what you're portraying, aside from, we realize that there's certain restrictions that come along with certain jobs, but being able to kind of just have a conversation. And sometimes I think that's almost a lost art form is actually having a conversation, particularly since COVID. And I think we had discussed, what that looks like for our young people who kind of were born into a world where you didn't have in-person conversations, and how that's carrying through. And I know you've faced some of that in what you do professionally. What are some of your thoughts on youth and kind of getting through that, pushing through those almost fears that they've developed about having conversations and being authentic with each other?
First, I just want to say, it's super valid. I think, just because we want somebody to do something different doesn't mean that we need to invalidate what they're doing now, right? So, having that fear, having that anxiety, it's super valid. It makes a lot of sense. But the real question you need to ask is is it serving you, And so when you're doing something, when you're making a choice, is that serving me? Does it serve me to, not walk up and introduce myself to a new group of people? Does it serve me to, sit on my own at lunch, all those things, right? It may feel easier in the moment, but is it serving you long-term? Are you building the life you want to build through your actions, And I think just knowing that being brave is not being unafraid. Being brave is being terribly afraid and doing it anyways. And so I would encourage people to just not wait until you're ready, until you're unafraid, because that day may never come. And instead to be brave and to do it anyways. And to know that if you try and it doesn't work out, or if you try and you don't make it all the way there, it's okay. You can try again,
I've done it many times.
Yeah.
So do you have anything, again, we kind of have some connections outside of this. So, I know some of the things you kind of have on tap right now. Do you have anything, any shows, anything coming up that you're excited about? I can think of one.
Okay, so I'm not sure which one you're thinking of, but I will tell you about something that I'm excited about. It's a little secret, so I'm only going to say it here. Yes, exclusive for you. So right now I'm working on a creative experience for couples, and I'm really excited to be testing it out this month. So I had this idea about how to create kind of authentic emotion in the moment. I don't love forced posing. And especially for couples, it can be really uncomfortable to do all this romantic stuff in front of a camera, in front of a person, in front of a stranger, right? And obviously I try to make people feel as much at ease as possible. But to me, the best pictures are always the ones that are the real emotion. When somebody cracked a joke and they all laughed, that's the shot. And so I thought, how can I recreate that, between couples? And what would be, this really amazing experience that people would come and enjoy, and they would leave it not only with these pictures and these memories, but, the actual experience of it as well. And that it would just be so enjoyable and not feel like a chore. And so what I did was I have a couple ready to model, and they are going to write each other a letter and seal the letter. And I will never see it. I will never hear it. They will at the same time on camera exchange the letters, read them. I will photograph the whole time, and then I'll gently guide them through a few kind of movement poses near the end once the emotion has settled. But I really think most of the beauty of that is going to be while they're reading the letters and while it's actually happening. So I'm really excited to capture that, really excited to be creating a new experience, and can't wait to share the results with everybody.
That's really cool. I haven't heard of anything like that. So I'm excited to see the results of that. If the couple is willing to share, and I could see that becoming something that more couples will want to do. It kind of reminds me of that. When you have a junior in high school kind of write a letter to their senior self,
Yes.
and then they don't open it for a period of time. You just kind of, that might be something you want to look at too, is doing that, where you have, you photograph the junior and then photograph the senior reading the,
Yeah.
I don't know, put a new twist on the old stale grad photos.
Yeah, I love it.
That'd be cool. That's really neat. And then I know you also had a feature come out with Spaces, which is which is the one I was thinking of, just because I'm tied to Spaces as well as one of the hosts. So I know Andrew put together a little, I guess, photo essay biography for you that's on, I believe it's on the photography page for North Bay for Spaces, which, if anyone doesn't know, that is a kind of a subsect to Bay Today, which is our local newspaper, and Village Media is doing this all over the province. So if you have Bay Today, Sioux Today, any of those newspapers, you will have a space attached to that in most communities, which is kind of like a social media platform that removes the noise.
Yes.
So there's not all the ads, there's not all the, the noise that is in the background. When you want to find something, you simply click on that subcategory and it's right there. So I manage, I think, 6 of the spaces in town.
Wow.
I just took on a whole bunch of them. So we're just trying to build that voice up. And I know I found out just through doing this podcast that I actually co-host a space with your husband, which is, kind of funny. I didn't realize it was him. And I know somebody might have some sights set on you for one. But I know Andrew did post that, so I was quite excited that got up and posted as fast as it did. And I'm going to link to that when I post this, so that people can jump into that and also read that as part of the description for this podcast. But what's it like to kind of have people coming at you now saying, hey, I want to feature you? Or, because I know I originally sent that to you and Andrew was like, yeah, send it to her.
It's interesting. I mean, I think it's just so different. Like, before I was doing a lot of PR and media stuff for the nonprofit, and I've done a little bit of PR for a few different things. I'm a Rotarian, so our Rotary Club does some stuff with media and things like that. But never for something creative like this. And it's so funny too, because I was talking to somebody and I was like, oh, it's for an artist feature. And somebody goes, what kind of art do you do?
Don't you love that question?
And I was just, no, it was so sweet, because I said, I'll just let you think about it, because they do know I do photography. And they were like, oh, yeah, obviously. And I was like, yeah, but it's so funny you say that, because originally I didn't think of photography as an art either. And so I've learned a lot about, what art is and what art isn't. And there's a lot more that art is than there is that art isn't.
Right.
It's just this amazing way to express your creativity and to communicate with the world. And so, yeah, I've found that through photography, but never in my life have I considered myself an artist of any sort. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
And see, I kind of grew up in this, I'm a little bit older than you. And I kind of grew up in this world where you had to have a 9-to-5. Art didn't pay the bills, so it wasn't a legitimate career. And I spent the first probably 30 years of my life saying, well, I can't do what I love because it's not a paid career. It's not going to pay the bills. It's not going to, and not realizing that it actually can, or it can just be a really good outlet. And it's kind of funny, because one of the things that I found, so my son went to art college at Fleming.
Oh, nice.
He went to art school, and he did glass blowing and blacksmithing, which,
wow.
I kind of went, okay, you're graduating high school at 16, and now I'm sending you to college, and I'm paying $10,000 a year for you to try 2 things you've never done before. It must be crazy. But I mean, he still blows glass, and he still, does everything. But the neat thing that they do is they take the students through, and it's not just about the art. They teach them the business side as part of that as well.
Oh,
which a lot of
lovely.
art colleges don't do. So they teach them how to go out and market themselves and how to, do
Wow.
different things. And their teachers are people working in the industry. So
That's
they
amazing.
run differently.
Yeah.
And they bring in people that are actually experiencing it to teach, which was really neat. And as a young person, I mean, he graduated high school really early. So I was kind of like, what do I do with this kid? And it really was beneficial to him because it also gave him that basis. So I think that's really important that we recognize that art can be a career and that we just need to figure out that kind of business side to it as well. And it can certainly be something that, I was saying to my wife today that I don't foresee myself ever being retired because I'm somebody that has to be doing something. But maybe that's where my art will fall into place later, is that kind
Absolutely.
of the little extras that we want in retirement. Um, but um, so what is there a personal experience that stands out to you most about your journey as an artist, as a photographer, as a social worker, something that you never expected would have an impact on you that actually was one of the biggest impacts to
Yeah.
photo?
The friendships that I made with the clients, which is so funny because if you know anything about social work, and I know you do, that's the last thing you're supposed to do is make friends with your clients. And so, yeah, it was such a weird kind of line to walk when I first started doing the photography because the professionalism and what professionalism looks like
Mhm.
is so different. So I love in photography, I can be professional, but I can also look like kind of a weirdo, all on the ground, like trying to get the shot. I love that I can make friends with the people that I photograph. I
Mhm.
love that some of them have become like my family. I love that I get to meet so many new people, and also following people along their journey. Like I've been doing it long enough that I have like repeat clients, and the best thing ever is seeing these little babies, and
Right.
they're not little babies anymore.
Yeah. Isn't
So
it that's so neat that you kind of end up it is the one thing that brings people together is the art, whether it's music, photography, painting, whatever. I have an artist at the gallery who I actually featured on the last episode of this, Jillian, who, literally walked through our door one day and kind of went, "Hey, can I put my art here?" And she had no idea what she was walking into, was having a bad day. And she spoke about this on the podcast, so I can share it. And she became one of my closest friends that, we've traveled together. We've done, crazy stuff together, the looking nuts at art battles where we're covered in paint and, just really weird stuff. We took a group of kids out of province on a trip together. Um, but it was the art that kind of made that connection. And I
yeah,
think that's, one of the things that I found is, like I said, in running the nonprofit was the people walking through the door because of the art. Our walls were covered in art. We were in a mall. So we had people coming in to share their stories,
yeah,
and people bringing other people in, and then they would come back with somebody else because they saw something. Um, and sometimes that could be a real drain as well. I often equated it to feeling like I was in a bit of a fishbowl because I didn't have a door and I didn't have an office. I was at the front.
yeah.
And, I imagine that has to play a bit of I guess, a role as a social worker as well. And I would assume, even though you're not necessarily doing clinical now and you're doing more policy and procedures and whatnot, that burnout level has to maybe come into play sometimes. Do you find the photography is a kind of an outlet to help you kind of deal with that and kind of take that step back for you?
Yeah, I love it because for me, photography is all about mindfulness. It's about being in the present moment so much that you're a witness to all the amazing little beautiful things within the moment. And so just the way that it makes me constantly look around for the beauty in life, and I'm always looking for the right angle, the lighting, the shot, and while I'm doing that, just noticing so much beauty and so much awe for everything that there is, in nature and, between people, the moments, the connection, all of that. So yeah, just being able to really be attuned into the wonder and magic of everyday life, I think has been like a real blessing, but also just the way that it kind of slows down and stops time, right? I think that's what mindfulness does for us. It allows us not to live in, the past or the future, but instead to appreciate the present. So yeah, that's been really therapeutic for me in a way. I always say that, I did therapy and that was my therapy. And yeah, so it's been really like a gift, and I'm just so grateful that I thought to pick up a camera because I really didn't have a reason, it's just an inkling.
Right. And I guess you kind of get to see the world through a different lens, pardon the pun, as a photographer, because, we talked last time about how, I can look up at a tree and see 5,000 shades of green, whereas, somebody without the, not appreciation, but somebody who looks at it differently will see one, maybe two, which is also sometimes a challenge because I'll try and paint that and I can't get the right shades of green and then I get frustrated with it. So
that's what
but you moving from Windsor back up north and not having been much further north than North Bay, I haven't seen a lot of the changing landscapes and things. So I know that's something you're looking forward to kind of getting out and, being able to photograph and put more into your pictures. And I will link to the photos that you did send me. I'll put those in the synopsis because there's some really nice landscape shots. What is one subject matter that is nature that you feel most drawn to and why?
So I always want to say the water, but then I kind of change my mind because I do love the sunset on the beach. I mean, it's gorgeous. We used to live on the beach and I would photograph the sunset every night. And it was different every night, and people would like the pictures and be like, that's so gorgeous. And I'm like, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just taking this is Mother Nature. This is, amazing. And so a lot of those photos of the sunsets and things like that, have little or no editing just because they're so beautiful as they are. But really, I would have to say, especially more recently, I've been really drawn to the forest. There's almost this like ethereal like vibe. It's like sort of like timeless, time stops too, when you're in there. And so, yeah, I just love to capture things in the forest. I always feel like there's a lot of stories in the woods. And so I want to tell them all.
If the trees could talk. So what's one thing that, leaving this podcast tonight, if there was one thing that you hope listeners would gain from hearing your story, what would that be and why?
I think to just try things. Like, this is going to be so funny, but there's that song by Shakira that's in Zootopia, the Try Everything song. Like when I'm in the car and I'm like not having a good day or like I'm getting myself pumped up for a new experience, I like crank that song and just like scream it.
Okay, that's hilarious because I know that song off by heart.
Of course you do. But like it's so positive and it's so true. Like try everything. It's okay to fall and get back up again. Life isn't just about flying. It's, falling down and learning that you can get back up and that's okay,
Yeah. You mentioned, so I kind of have a little questionnaire I send out to all of the guests. And one of the things you mentioned when I did ask that question was that that you hope listeners walked away with permission to be more honest with themselves. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think showing up authentically isn't necessarily just about being honest with other people. It's about being honest with yourself about, who you are and what you stand for and, showing up as authentically as you can, but kind of not being always, so movable, and just standing for who you are and what you believe in and all of those things, right? I think I talked to somebody recently, a really good friend of mine, and we were talking about the difference between fitting in and belonging. And I think I finally realized that the difference between fitting in and belonging is showing up authentically. You can't belong somewhere that people don't know who you really are, because belonging isn't changing yourself or putting on a front or masking what, you know, we're afraid for people to see. It's, showing up authentically and being accepted and belonging somewhere because you're accepted exactly as you are. So I think just, yeah, I want people to know that it's okay to be brave and to show up as honestly as you can for yourself and others, because there's awesome stuff waiting for you. So try everything.
That's amazing. Try everything. I'm going to have to go listen to that song.
Right?
It's been a while. I used to crank it in the car as well. Yeah, it was one of those ones that kind of spoke to you.
Right?
Yeah. So I want to thank you for coming back a second time to record this. Because we did hit record this time, so we know it's live, or will be live. And I'm looking forward to being able to post this and post the link to the Spaces article that Andrew did on you. Andrew, coincidentally, is my guest in 2 weeks' time, so you'll get to meet him as well, kind of another full circle in there. But Andrew is the manager for Spaces for Village Media, and one of my biggest supporters, and honestly, tried to turn down the position for Spaces in the beginning, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm like, no, just meet with me. I'm sure you probably will.
Oh no, I have a meeting with him on Tuesday.
Yeah, he's hard to get. Yeah. It was literally, he sent me the like kind of, hey, would you be interested? And I kind of went, yeah, no, it was kind of when I was going through everything with the center and do we stay, do we go? And I originally told him, okay, I'll do the interview. And then I said, before the interview happened, probably about an hour, I kind of went, you know what? I don't think I'm what you're looking for. I just don't have the time to devote to this. And he was like, just come for the interview. And by the end of the interview, I was, managing Spaces.
I believe it. It's a little magnetic. I'm excited to be on there.
It is. You're gonna love it. And again, it gives you a bit of a platform too as a host. For those of you that don't know, every space has a host that allows, so it's kind of like a moderator, but a little less structured than a moderator. So you can message us, you can post your own stuff, but we kind of go in and kind of keep the space moving, which is kind of a neat way of doing it. And then we have like little local meetups where we get together. We might actually get to see each other in person. So I know here we do them at Twigs usually, although I'm trying to convince them to do something at, a Dairy Queen or something and give the kids ice cream for free, kind of, connect families. But it's really trying to bring community together and change that narrative that, media is beyond the community and is about the big stories. They're trying to bring it back to being about the community, which is really a neat way of looking at it. So you'll be excited to meet him, and I'm excited to host him next week, or a week and a half from now, I guess, because we're kind of off schedule. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come out tonight again and kind of give up another hour of your time to record this. I'm going to link to all of your socials and all of your websites and everything that you've sent in on the form so that people can find you if they're local, if they're not local, looking for a photographer, looking for, advice, whatever. Just letting them know that you are very approachable, which I've always found a perk from day one. To be fair, I met you when I was not in a very good place, and it really did help. So, people coming to you for photography need to know that you are somebody that puts people at ease. I mean, you were a wedding photographer, crying out loud. And that was a high stress day. But we really do appreciate you taking the time tonight. And I look forward to what we get to do together in the future.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. And, don't feel bad about it, because I literally said to my husband, I get to talk to Karrie twice this week.
Right? For how long?
Right?
So yeah, it works. And I think actually it tightened things up a little bit and kind of got the points across a little better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not as much fumbling behind the scenes. But yeah, so I'm going to, at that point, we're going to let everyone go. I'm going to end the recording. We're going to make sure it saves, and we're going to upload it so there's no issues.
Okay.
And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
You too. Thanks so much, Karrie. Take care.
You're welcome. You have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye. So next podcast, we'll be hosting Andrew Schutz, who is the manager of Spaces, as I mentioned. And we're excited to host him and have a lovely chat with Andrew from the Sioux. So on that note, I'm going to go and edit this and get it posted. So wishing you all a great night and be kind to yourself.